The Lost in Transition podcast is sponsored by Health IQ, an insurance company that helps health-conscious people like runners, cyclists, and triathletes get lower rates on their life insurance. Go to healthiq.com/try to support the show and see if you qualify. Welcome to the Lost in Transition podcast and the year 2018. I'm your host, Chris Gerard. Glad to have you along as we look forward to the coming triathlon season. Hope your holidays went well and you didn't gain too many pounds or miss too many training sessions. Remember to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, the TuneIn Radio app. We're also available on YouTube as audio only for now, maybe some video coming later on. Also available for listening at the website, losttransition.com, Facebook and Twitter for our social media updates. As always, we encourage you to connect with us there and let us know what you'd like to hear on our upcoming shows. We've got Susan Lakey coming up in a couple weeks, pro triathlete and author of the book, Life's Too Short to Go So Effing Slow. That's going to be a lot of fun. Also, Kevin Sprouse of Team Cannondale going to be coming up with another Ask the Doc segment. Always have a great time with him coming up on the show here in just a few weeks. For right now, we're going to kick off the year 2018 with our own resident coach, Lana Burl, and Derek Tingle, who joined us back just before Christmas on the episode where he talked about going from Ironman to the Xterra World Championships in 1 year. And we're going to talk about finding and working with a coach in 2018. The beginning of the year is a time a lot of people start. But one of the things that often comes up in conversation is, should I get a coach? And the first of the year is a time that a lot of people start thinking about that. So we're going to cover tonight who needs a coach, what you can benefit from having a coach to help you out with your training program, what to expect if you've never been coached before, and how to select somebody, finding the right personality that matches with you, and how that relationship works down the line. We have with us our own resident coach and co-host, Lana Burl, joining us, and Derek Tingle joining us on the roundtable as well tonight as we delve into this topic. Lana, Derek, welcome to Lost in Transition. Glad to have you with us to talk about this tonight. And Lana, we'll start with you. First off, the simplest question that people ask when they get a triathlon: do I need a coach? Why do I have a coach?
Of course, everyone needs a coach. No, really, I think it comes down to, can everyone benefit from a coach? Yes, I do believe so. I think no matter if you're winning Ironman World Championships or if you are, just kind of feeling out your first Olympic or trail sprint, everyone can benefit from having a coach. And the question becomes, is that the right thing for me right now? And, what is it that I need? Because a coach can really provide some excellent perspective, sort of that second set of eyes, someone who's objective. And you know how it is, we all get in our own head and we all have our own things. And sometimes it takes someone who can take a mile-high view or a longer view or just a view without all the emotion can really help somebody out. So, yeah, I believe everyone can benefit from a coach, and figuring out what the right one is for you at the right time, that's the tricky part.
And Derek, I know when we were talking about your transition into Xterra on the last podcast, you've definitely come a long way from doing your first 5K and first triathlon. And I'm pretty sure you didn't have a coach to start out. So I guess just tell us along the line, when did you even first become aware of that actually people were triathlon coaches, and when did you decide that that was something you needed?
All right. So I actually started working with a coach toward the end of my first season in triathlon. I spent the whole first season basically being self-coached or coaching myself and had no idea what I was doing. I'd just write down on a sheet of paper that I'm going to run today and bike tomorrow and swim Thursday and, no real workouts. I just go and run for a while or ride for a while. And obviously I knew by the end of that season that I needed to improve. So I started working with a run coach initially. And because that was, I felt, what my weakest point of the triathlon was. So I started working with a run coach, and I had some goals to get down to a half marathon PR and just improve my overall run, and which worked out really well. More into triathlon, to shift focus to someone who was more versed in triathlon. And so moving into my second full season in triathlon, after achieving my PR on my half marathon and working with my run coach that whole winter, I started working with a local triathlon coach. I'd heard from word of mouth, and heard that he was coaching and seemed like a pretty good fit after I talked to him. So got started working with him, and the rest is, I guess, history. You know, I worked with him up until the end of last year when he decided to move out of coaching and, you know, move into focus a little more on his own thing. So he just switched over to a new coach who may or may not be on this podcast at the moment. So looking forward to a new set of eyes and see what goes on from here.
Great job with the subtle endorsement there. You know, no product placement here. That's for sure. You know, you bring up an interesting point, though. You talked about the first coach that you got being a running coach. And I know, Lana, a lot of people wonder because, you know, triathlon coaches, they're definitely plentiful out there. But some people know that obviously the high-level professionals often will have a coach for each discipline and then maybe a master coach over them all. Now, us average people can't afford to have 3 or 4 coaches on staff. But there is some thought, I suppose, to, you know, maybe if you feel competent in one sport, you know, maybe you just kind of need a coach for one, but that's got to be kind of an interesting balance. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, you know, like you said, you know, some of these, they're the professionals, and they are very seasoned athletes. So even if you're not a pro, but someone who's been at it a while can often see that, hey, I need to work in these other areas. The difference is that I think sometimes we think, oh, triathlon, it's swimming and biking and running, so we just have to swim and bike and run. And at the end of the day, triathlon is its own sport. We have elements that are swim, bike, run. But if you were to work specifically with a running coach, and, you know, Derek may have seen this, is that, yeah, those skills and the things that you do with just a running coach may not fit into an overall triathlon plan. So having someone or some way to integrate it makes sense. But I think an experienced athlete is going to benefit from that. It could benefit from that if they know that they have a weak area, or they're working with someone who's really a good triathlon coach, but just may say, you know what, I just cannot sort out your swim, or your triathlon coach lives in Washington State, you live in Tennessee, and you need to work on your swim. Well, it might make sense to do something like Master Swim, where you can get swim coaching from a coach on deck who can see you swim and work with you. So I think it can make sense, and you may not have to hire, you know, all these individual coaches and create this staff for you. I think you can find instruction like through clinics and other things to help you work on individual aspects of the sport. But at the end of the day, having someone who is really overseeing it, saying this is what triathlon is, and integrating all of these disciplines, that's really key.
That's certainly one of the benefits, is having somebody with that kind of comprehensive, overarching picture. You know, for people that are newer to the sport, it's an interesting suggestion. Several things are interesting to them, I guess, when they think they learn it. One is the idea of a triathlon team being an individual sport. The other one, though, is coaching, because I think a lot of us who come up in team sports are used to coaches being a team effort, and the idea of an individual coach, you kind of wonder, well, what do they do? You know, they're not going to be watching you while you practice. You know, they're not going to come along on all your rides with you and evaluate everything. So I guess first off, you know, the differences, the services provided by coaches are pretty much dependent on how much you're willing to pay for. But what are some of those services? And when you're looking, I guess, for a coach, what kind of options, I guess, are even out there on the high end, the low end? Lana, what have you seen out there?
Well, actually, I want to touch on something you mentioned there, kind of that difference between team and individual. And this is kind of a related point, is that typically with triathlon coaches, especially these days, just our modern life and our lifestyle, and also the cost, you're typically, even if your coach lives down the street, it's rare that you're probably going to be working out with them unless you're paying them a substantial amount of money, really is what it comes down to. Or it just happens to be convenient that you can work together, and that's that coach's style. So the nature of triathlon coaching today for the modern age grouper is going to be a mostly virtual scenario. So like you said, you don't have that eyes on. So that part is different. And I think that's something that's unique to this sport and just the way we do things. But that all said, I think when you look at the services and the costs that are involved, you can probably get an individual coach maybe as low as $50 a month on up to, I've seen prices over $2,000 a month for a coach. And the services go from basically you get a standard rote training plan all the way up to someone you are able to basically cohabitate with that is coaching you every day on every aspect of your life. I think the average person kind of finds themselves somewhere down around in that, $100 to, $500 a month range. That's what most age groupers are going to come into. And there's always some delivery of training plans, as kind of tends to be the biggest piece of it, is giving you workouts and guiding you through a build towards, main events. Some coaches provide more or less of race preparation, nutrition coaching, which is kind of its own little devil, because we really shouldn't be prescribing people what to eat if we're not dietitians. So there's a lot of different things out there. And it kind of comes also to the coach's expertise. If a coach has a strength and conditioning background, then they're going to be giving you really good strength workouts. Or if they had a running background, they may have really worked with you heavily on run or do video analysis with you. So I think there's quite a bit of variety out there. I think it's just important knowing what you want, what you're looking for when you're going out and actually shopping.
Because of the nature of that essentially virtual relationship, that you're not having somebody who's sitting right there with you who can explain something and knock you upside the head if you're doing it wrong and show you the right way to do it. That's there's a responsibility on the athlete to have some communication to be able to kind of keep the coach informed about what's going on, because what they don't know, they can't help you with. And Derek, having been coached now for several years, what is involved with being a good coach's athlete? And secondly, have you been one? Be honest.
Well, if you ask Lana, I think at the moment the answer is no. But I think it all kind of depends on the thing. And historically, I think that's been one of the things that's made me successful, is I'm consistent with the workouts. And it was one of the with my previous coach, was consistency. I tend to be a very driven athlete, and I tend to be one of those people that goes out whenever I'm given a workout, I go out and I do the workout regardless, and for better or for worse, whether I'm feeling bad or whether I'm feeling good, I'll go out and slog through a workout or something like that, just because it's on the training plan. This winter, there's a lot of things going on right now that just have prevented me from being able to do that I've been given, and it's driving me nuts. But at the time, I have to kind of sit down with my coach and go, hey, here's what's going on in life. And that's the nice thing, is you have that person to go, you know what, it's okay. We'll get through it. We'll work our trading plan. We'll come back around and we'll make it happen. And I think that's one of the things that's very valuable about having a coach, is if you're just reading a piece of paper that you've purchased from, say, Training Peaks or something like that, where you've just bought a training plan, you have to be a very, disciplined individual to feel what your body's telling you, and to be able to, know how to call that audible if you want, or fighting through the workouts, whether or not you feel good. And sometimes that's not a good thing. But having that coach in your corner, sounding board with them, and go, hey, here's what's going on in my life right now. And then being able to go, okay, well, let's switch some things up. Let's look at this. Let's do it this way, has been really valuable to me. So I think that's what I see as a big benefit to having a coach, someone develop that plan for you. But But as anything, consistency is key. And, if you can get out there and try to hit that level of consistency with your workouts, that's what's going to be your main benefit, no matter what coaching program you're using. If you're paying $2,000 a month but not doing the workouts, it doesn't matter.
Paying the money does not get you fit alone. If only it would work that way. A lot of people would go for that for sure. You raised a really good point, though, about training plans. I know training plans are something that, at least from what I've seen of people using them, they can work really well if a lot of things fall into place. Like you mentioned, Derek, being able to know your own body and know that this plan is actually fitting you and doesn't need to be adjusted up or down. And then also when things go off the rails, because no one's going to get through a, say, 16-week training plan hitting every single workout exactly perfectly unless they have perfect health and no emergencies in life. You would have to be so insanely lucky to just ace everything about that. But, if something happens that gets you way off base on the training plan, you have something, you get ill and you can't work out for a couple weeks or something like that, then you have to ask, okay, do you want to jump back in right where the training plan says to, or ramp it up, or how do you get that? And the benefit I think you get out of having a coach is that you not only get the information, you can ask and hopefully will get a good answer on the why. And at that point, it's something that you can, feel out. Is this run on my schedule really, really important? Or is it just one of those, it would be nice if, and wouldn't hurt if you did? So getting some of that more information is part of what you get out of the coaching experience for sure. As people go to look for a coach, it's hard to tell. There's so many people out there of all different levels and qualifications, and I'm sure people select based on some very good reasons and sometimes some really out there reasons. Lana, I know you've seen a lot of people, you've been coached, you've seen a lot of people look for coaches. First off, what are some of the, shall we say, less good reasons that people might pick a coach?
Yeah, that's a great, it's kind of funny. I think you look across any sport and, there's great players who turn out to be great coaches, and there's great players who turn out to not be so great coaches. And, so obviously chasing a name, assuming that because they performed well in the sport, that they're going to be able to then teach others to do. So I think that's probably the main reason, is that you're going to somebody, but just because of their reputation or name recognition. I mean, really, I think there's two ways to go about it. It's you can take a look across the available coaches and you can say, okay, this one looks like the best one for me. Or you might say, I'm going to write down a list of the things that I'm looking for and kind of make a spec, and then sort of start shopping around to see what kind of person is going to fit for you. And I know my personality would be to do a spec and kind of figure out what I'm looking for and then go shop, but that's not always the easiest way. So I think a lot of times people talk to their friends, talk to their training partners, or they'll see a post on social media where somebody says, hey, I just want to thank my coach for helping me get to this race. And I think that's usually the way it happens, which is not a surprise. I mean, that's how relationships are built in every other aspect of our lives. So yeah, there's quite a variety out there. I think it's just important to remember when you get started with somebody, it's like, what are you looking for them to provide to you? What is the thing that you're missing that you're hoping they're going to do? And be really upfront about that when you talk to that coach for the first time. And, just say, hey, I need a great motivator. And the coach can look at you and say, I am not a great motivator. I am not a good fit for you. So be really clear about what you're looking for, and always definitely shop around. And if a coach does not encourage you to shop around, then you might want to kind of scratch your head about them, because, a coach wants you to be a good fit with them to take you on. I mean, just as much as you want them to be a good fit, because it's frustrating as a coach to work with somebody that you're not fitting with. So take that for what it's worth.
Health IQ uses science and data to secure lower rates on life insurance for triathletes, runners, and cyclists. Life insurance is one of those things that can often be marketed in a negative sort of way. You are faced with the worst case scenario and told of the terrible things that could happen if you don't have all your ducks in a row. At the same time, there's a positive side to it. That's peace of mind knowing that all your ducks are in a row and that your family is taken care of if the worst should happen. In fact, one of the testimonials on Health IQ's website is from Renee B., a triathlete, and she says, "I try to do everything with a positive spin, and Health IQ was the first company that had that perspective in the life insurance industry. In an industry that wants to focus on your negative habits, Health IQ did the opposite of that. They really focused on what you are doing that's positive, proactive, and healthy. I've been recommending Health IQ to my friends who are cyclists, runners, and triathletes, and I've been spreading the word to everybody I can think of because I just think it's awesome." That's what Renee B. thinks of Health IQ. Health IQ is rated 9.6 out of 10 on Trustpilot. Their customers absolutely love them. And they're a partner with USA Triathlon as well. Check it out today for your free quote at healthiq.com/try, healthiq.com/TRI. That's our special URL, or mention the promo code TRY when you speak to a Health IQ agent. A cynical person might just think, of course, a coach is going to want, if they have X athletes, they're going to want X plus one. It's the old same joke about bikes. You always need to have one more coming. And the point that you made, I think, that was so good is that the coach has to deal with you daily, weekly, whatever. And if you are a bad fit for them, it's not going to be much fun for them either. And
it's not fun for anybody.
It's not fun for everybody. And that's where it comes down to the fact that it is a real working relationship that you have to have with somebody. And if that relationship is not functioning correctly, then absolutely nobody wins. Even if they're getting your money, they're still probably, not really feeling great about it. So part of that relationship, like we mentioned, is the good communication that you want to try to foster so they can know how best to help you. But then once you're in that coaching relationship too, obviously, what are some good ways to keep the lines of communication open, and then how should you go about raising concerns? Because you may find yourself with a coach that's just simply not working. How does that conversation come up? What's kind of, the convention for that? Lana, what was your experience with that?
I think it really comes down to initially agree your communication method and your frequency. And that may be part of sort of the plan. And, coaches generally should have some sort of a contract or agreement or some kind of at least a document that you can both see and agree to and say, this is how we're going to do things. I have my athletes sign contract with me, and largely it's to spell out kind of how things go and give us a framework when we're in the midst of the relationship to help us in case we need some guidance. And that way it's kind of keeps things clear. And of course there's flexibility within that, but it at least gives us some guidelines. And then from there, it's just, it's communicating, and if you agree that, as an athlete, you're going to upload your data to Training Peaks at, within 48 hours of completing a workout, then you should do that. And if your coach says, hey, I like feedback, add comments into Training Peaks, then yes, you should do that. So take advantage of all that communication. I would say always over communicate. And if it's not working, reach out to that coach and just say, look, I don't think this is working. How can we change this moving forward? It's just like any other relationship in your life that you have to have function.
One of the comments that I had with a coach at one point was the fact that I wrote great notes in Training Peaks. I was very proud of that. In fact, the downside was I eventually felt pressure to write a really good story in there because I had written such a compelling and entertaining narrative, and not every day can be that entertaining. But that's, I guess, what comes from being verbose at times. But anyway, getting back on track here. Also, we were talking about looking for a coach. I don't want to gloss over this because it's an important point. There are certain types of certifications out there, and I know that it always looks good when somebody's certified in something, but goodness gracious, what does it even mean? What's level 1? What's level 2? And can somebody print their own diploma? What do those pieces of paper mean, and how do they help? I know, Lana, you have a piece of paper that says something, right?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of pieces of paper. But part of it stems because, honestly, if you see a coach with a lot of pieces of paper, you might say, maybe that person just loves learning, which is kind of my story. Is I love to learn, and I love to learn from places that I know I'm going to get good science and good data and good facts. So I've been certified with USA Triathlon and US Masters Swimming, USA Cycling. And the reasons, for picking those organizations to do certifications with is that it generally is a little bit more than just, hey, I gave them some money, they gave me a certificate, and off we go. USAT Level 1 is a very rigorous certification. There's an application process. You have to have a recommendation from an athlete to even get into a 2-day coaching seminar where you're there with 40, 50 other coaches. It's taught by the Level 2 and Level 3 coaches. And in USAT, I think there's only 18 Level 3 coaches that exist. And these people know their business. They're coaching Olympians. Very quality, but we also have to do a background check. We have to watch some material called Safe Sport, which educates us on bullying and sexual harassment and on all kinds of nasty business, which you hear about in the news these days. So it is a pretty rigorous program, and they do vary. I think it's important to say, hey, coach, what certifications do you have? And ask them, hey, what does this mean? What does this say about you? And, ultimately, though, what it comes down to, you don't have to have a driver's license to be a good driver, and not everyone with a license is a good driver. I think we all can agree on that. So just because someone is certified doesn't mean that they're going to be a good coach or that they're going to be the best coach for you. It is that they have taken some steps to try to improve and better themselves. To keep those certifications, we have to do a lot of continuing education. So it does mean that we are somewhat serious about it and engaged in the sport. But it doesn't also mean that you should write somebody off just because they don't have one.
Right. Well, and it's also certification offers a level, I think, of accountability in the case that somebody, really is causing some serious problems, and I don't know what USAT, USAC, USA Masters Swimming, and all the other organizations, how strictly they police members if, say there's some, dissatisfaction with someone's training which probably doesn't rise to that level, but, if someone feels like they didn't get what they paid for or something, consumer issues like that there might be something in the way of repercussions that maybe would keep people a little bit honest. That kind of does raise the question too. A lot of triathlon coaches are absolutely wonderful people who are really, not doing it for their main income or anything like that. They're just literally doing it because they love to help people reach their level of success, and they're making some money off of it, but they're really just doing it for the love of it at the end of the day. And so, kudos to those people by all means. At the same time, there can be people and there can be coaching situations to watch out for. What are some things, Lana, that people should kind of watch out for that might raise a red flag? I know we talked about people that told you not to shop around.
Yeah. I think it's, ask for references or ask, do your research on people. I mean, with today's interwebs being as powerful as they are in social media, go ahead and put that coach's name in, search on Google for them, search on Facebook, look at their Instagram, get an idea of who this person is, try to learn some things about them. And, like I said, a lot of our referrals and word of mouth anyway. So ask other athletes, what is it like? What do you not like about them? What do you like about them? You can always do that. But I think, as you're testing a relationship, especially in the beginning, if you get that weird gut feeling that says this isn't a fit, and you may not be able to put a finger on it, don't discount that feeling. And also you may see people who are really rabid fans of that coach and then suddenly they stop. That'd be someone I'd ask, be like, hey, is everything cool? Or, I'm considering that person as a coach. What do you think? Take it with a grain of salt, of course, but I agree with you, Chris. What you said was that it's not like we get up in the morning and say, okay, I'm out to hurt this person or make their life miserable. I'm just here to steal everybody's money, because I can guarantee you this is not a lifestyles of the rich and famous way to go about it. So, so I think it's just, trust your gut and know exactly what you're trying to find in a coach. And, I've been fortunate enough in my athletic career that I've never run into any coaches that I would consider dangerous or, ill-minded. And Derek, I don't know if you have anything in your past you could point out.
No, not really, thankfully. But I do think that all of this, conversation that we've been having, it all stems back to how important that initial interview with the coach is. And like you said, I mean, it really is a relationship, and it needs to be the right relationship for everyone to benefit. So having that initial interview, that sitting down, having that honest conversation with that person, going, hey, here's my goals. Here's what I want to accomplish. Here's how I like to work. Here's how, my life is structured, and all those things being brought to the forefront gives that coach an opportunity to go, hey, you know what? A great fit for how I like to coach. Or at the same time going, you know what? Not really my thing. So it really tells you how important that is. And I know, when I got into experience, that played a big role in it. Was I sat down with my previous coach and we lined out where I wanted to go and how I wanted to get there. And, things worked. And then when I was looking for another coach, I had researched some coaches online, some pretty big name, high profile coaches, and with Lana, and we had, a really good one-on-one conversation, and again, had that where I want to go, how I want to get there type of thing. And, at the end of the day, it just seemed like a good fit. So I really think that's probably the most important step. I mean, yes, do your research, find out, narrow down that big list into one or two, but then if you can at all, sit down with that person, have a one-on-one phone call, do that interview and be real and be honest and get that relationship started correctly.
Yeah, and don't be afraid also to consider yourself an equal partner in that relationship. The coach may have the expertise, but you also are the one that's having to follow through and do the workouts and whatever. And I think sometimes people get into trouble when they don't communicate back to their coach, or maybe accept something, that a workout that they really shouldn't be doing. They know they have no business doing. And so, realize that they may, know a little bit more than you, but they should never be afraid to explain what they're doing or the reason behind that. I know that's something I had to get used to a little bit, because I figured that, a coach just knows what, I should just do whatever they want me to do. And, I had to get to the point where I said, no, I'm not doing that. Are you crazy? I'd be willing to stretch myself, but it took, a little bit of practice to say, wait a second, maybe they don't realize just how, off the rails, the day has been, or something like that. And rather than feel bad about it and go out and try to kill myself doing what they want me to do, maybe I should just communicate the fact that, hey, look, this ain't going to happen. It's just realistic. And if they are any sort of decent coach, they'll be okay with that. And the other thing is, too, asking for clarification. I know, people can make typos, and typos can ruin your life. One point, I had a low RPM hill repeat set on the bike. And I forget what decimal got, it wasn't going to be a decimal, but what place value got misplaced or something like that. But whatever was ordered up there was something like 30, 60-second long, 45 RPM. And, it's a hill climb that Lance Armstrong at his most juiced would be having a hard time to do, probably. And, I started into it, and I think I got like a third of the way through it before I said, this is stupid. And then, of course, when I posted, something about that in my notes, there was oh no, why in the world did you try to do that? So definitely, don't be afraid to give a little bit of pushback, and that does not make you a difficult athlete. The difficult athletes are the ones that don't communicate and you don't hear anything from. The ones that communicate a lot and negotiate, that's not a sign of a bad athlete. So.
Well, Chris, I'll let you in a little secret. Sometimes as a coach, we put in workouts where we say, you know what, this person can handle this workout. This is going to be a little tougher. It's going to stretch them. It's going to challenge them. Let's just see what happens. And if somebody who gives good feedback, they may come back and say, wow, that was really tough. I didn't think I could do it, but I held on and I made it. It's not something you would do for someone who's you need to build confidence with, but you just never know, so it may be on purpose. It may not be, but like you said, always clarify and communicate. And, to that end.
Yeah, kind of along that line, I had a couple of those Ironman. There were those workouts that, really at the end of the day, they were almost kind of designed for me to fail. Or at least just to see where I was, in a mental state to be able to suffer. And, I had to kind of go back after that, go to my coach and go, all right, look, that didn't work at all. And then you get that, well, it kind of wasn't supposed to. So, but now we have some good numbers to move forward.
Exactly. Well, hopefully all this information has been helpful to people. I know we covered in the looking for a coach. There's word of mouth is probably the most common, but USAT Training Peaks do also serve to connect people, so you can definitely look there, and we'll link those up in the show notes. Lana or Derek, any final words or thoughts before we close this out?
I will say this, when you are working with a coach, their goal is to help you. Words really out of their mouth. It's like, what can I do? What can I do to help you? How can I help you achieve your goals? And, we do this, like you said earlier, we do it out of passion. And we also are trying to make sure that we're serving our clients the best. And, I will bring up one thing that, you talked about what makes a good or a bad athlete. One thing that can make I would say a bad athlete or an athlete that needs to change, someone who takes your training plans and, tries to share them or use them for other people. And, sometimes it's appropriate, but generally it's not. And that coach has taken a lot of time and energy to try to come up with something that's going to work best for you. And, so when you are working with someone, do respect their expertise and the relationship that you have, respect each other. And it can be really great. And, at the end of the day, you'll learn something from the coach. The coach is definitely learning things from you. I can guarantee you all of that. All of my athletes teach me things on a daily basis. It's a lot of fun, and sometimes I never know what to expect. And I hope that I continue to keep benefiting them as long as our relationship lasts. And at some point, I know the relationships will all end. I mean, I've already had athletes that I've worked with that have left, and, hopefully I was as beneficial for them as I could be during that period, and that they're still able to grow and learn new things from their new coach. And sometimes we all need to do that. I mean, I have coached myself, and there's a time and a place when it's like, okay, it's time to move on to someone else. So again, be honest at the end of your relationships too.
Some great advice there. Hopefully it helps some people out there as you move toward your 2018 triathlon goals. And let us know via Facebook, Twitter, and email via the website how we can help you meet your training goals in 2018. We've got some shows coming up that will hopefully help out with that, but we're always open to suggestions to keep the good shows coming. So thanks for all your comments, and keep them coming in the new year. And Lana and Derek, thanks for joining us on the podcast tonight. Follow us online at losttransitions.com, Facebook and Twitter for the social media updates. Subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, the TuneIn Radio app, and on YouTube. We'll see you again next week. For Lana Burl and Derek Tingle, I'm Chris Gerard. May all your transitions be smooth.